And I guess the beauty of what you are arguing with the Superpower Institute is that you don't have to grapple with the complexity of exporting hydrogen, which is a diabolical
That's right. You
proposition.
don't have the whole point of what we're saying really is that whereas previously it made sense to export iron ore, export metallurgical coal, export the gas, and let the iron metal be made overseas. But when you're trying to do it, make green metal, you need hydrogen, you need renewable energy. Both of those are very difficult and very expensive to export. So it makes sense, the economics flip completely. It makes sense now to make the iron metal in Australia. So this is why this is such a benefit to the Australian economy. We're going to bring a lot more value-added processing because that makes economic sense.
And you're also arguing in the speech today that government needs to focus, as I said to Professor Garnaut, on what it can do. And one of the things is transmission. And here on my program and elsewhere, we've been debating a lot this issue of not in my backyard. People don't want transmission lines through their farms. How do you grapple with that in terms of your prescription today?
It doesn't really affect our prescription today because you can have the transmission lines in the Pilbara, the Spencer Gulf, up north. Most of what we're talking about will be done in the upper half of Australia where the solar potential is excellent. There's very few farms up there. So the problem you've got with the East Coast grid and the NIMBY factor, it'd be great if some of those people wanted to have some of these industries there, but if they don't, in many ways the logical place for them is, as I say, in the Pilbara where the iron ore is, North Queensland, Western Australia where the bauxite is, up north where the best solar resources are. So it's just not an issue for the superpower industries.
And how do you get the dollars into it? How do you get the investment into it? How do we drive that?
There's three ways we drive the investment. One is to make sure that we get access to initially the European Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. If you're taxing, for example, iron metal made from fossil fuels, but you're not taxing the green metal will be cheaper in Europe than the fossil fuel metal. So we need access there. The second thing we need is an innovation grant. We're calling it the Superpower Investment Innovation Scheme. We need that because this is such a major transition. All the technologies are doable, but they've not been done at scale. And so when we do them at scale, the initial people are going to learn a lot, which will help everybody else. So we really need to give an incentive for that innovation, and we need government to build some of the transmission infrastructure. Okay,
so there's the roadmap. Part of it is, as Professor Garnaut, you touched on this levy, and looking at your speeches and knowing the history of this country, the ups and downs, and mostly downs of the energy debate in this country over the last decade or two, a levy on the polluters to make them pay for the cost they impose on others, that looks like the most glaring difficulty in this argument. How do you win that debate?
We don't pretend that everyone will put up their hands and say, go as fast as you can. Certainly the 105 companies that will be paying that levy within Australia won't think it's a great idea. But there's 27 million Australians who do very well out of it. A lower cost of living, more jobs, higher real wages. And in the end, you've got to make choices. We've made some bad choices in the last 10 years. I wrote a book, Reset, in the middle of the pandemic, which pointed out that we've, since 2013, we've had just about the worst growth in average output per person in the developed world. In the 2 decades before that, we had nearly the best, so it was quite a coming down. Real wages are lower now than 10 years ago. That's never happened in Australia before. So you say it's impossible to put a levy on 105 gas and coal producers. Tell you what, it's impossible for the Australian community to accept another decade of no growth in real wages. So we've got to make choices. And in the end, yes, it will be impossible to impose a levy because the polluters won't like it, but it's more impossible to look 27 million Australians in the face and say you're going to have another 2 decades of stagnant living standards like the last decade.
Ross Garnaut, Rod Sims, it's wonderful to have you here and to get your insights. Very much appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Karen.
Great talking to you, Karen.